Welcome to our AI SecOps podcast. In this episode, we will discuss the AI news of the month with Brian Fehrman, Derek Banks, Bronwen Aker, and Ben Bowman.
Doing these, like we're going to talk about the news, I think that those will be fun. And so, Bronwen, you had mentioned a minute ago about like AI detecting spam. And so in the class that Joff and I put together, that's what we teach people to do from like the ground up is we've got a phishing data set. Now, how do you make machine learning and up to AI models that will detect whether or not a message is ham or spam? It's actually like a classic machine learning problem that before, if you were taking a data science class, like not a security class, they might actually have that data set, right? Because it turns out that NLP, like we're really successful with it. And then, if you've ever wondered like why you don't get as much spam, or you do, it just goes to a different folder, right? Well, it's because, algorithms like, logistic regression and support vector machine is pretty good and pretty fast. And so, these companies have been, for a while using statistics, statistical learning, right? Not even what we consider AI. It's really just machine learning or finding the best fit for the data, mm-hmm. right? And in our class, the support vector machine runs on 16,000 messages in less than 5 seconds.
Are you talking about the BERT email one?
No, so we actually compare against the BERT one and like, okay, because that phishing, the one that's the supervised fine-tuning BERT model is pretty accurate. And we actually go verify it on a data set as part of one of the notebooks. And then we get like, I think it's like 97% accuracy and some change, like 97.87 or something. And so the support vector machine is like, 97.28. It's like real close. And talking about volumes of phishing messages, I think that matters, right? But that's why, I think in the mid 2000s-ish when machine learning was all the rage and we hadn't really got to these transformers yet, that's when spam started to really like drop off. And if I was going to put out a product, I'm not sure I'd go with a transformer. Some of those statistical learning ones, pretty cheap and good. You don't have to use a GPU, right? Like,
yeah, certainly. That's fun because I got an article on that at the end that we can discuss and rant.
We can talk about that one now. Let's talk about that one now.
Yeah.
Order, right? Beholden to a specific order. We can do what we want. It's our show.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do it. Yeah, so an article I came across mentioned only 11% of small to medium businesses use AI for cyber defenses. And I feel like they phrase it in such a way that like that's a bad thing, like if they're not using AI, like they're behind the curve. And it's like, okay, what do we mean by AI? It's like what you were saying, Derek, that like a lot of people think of transformers now is what they're thinking. So likely they're talking about LLMs, but there is a lot of other type of AI machine learning. And as you mentioned too, LLM, it might not be the best choice for a particular problem, right?
Well, I think that in our class, we definitely, I think, prove with, I'll say prove. It's a strong word in statistics and math, right? I think we demonstrate through experimentation, through science, that, you can get drastically different results with different algorithms. And then, you might find that one algorithm works better for your particular problem and you don't have to use, and, because when we talk about business, you talk about costs too, right? And so if you're going to use an LLM or use a transformer, you're running that on a GPU. And, mm-hmm. I think that, again, like how do you say that, well, like only 11%, would you say was the percent? Only 11%?
Yeah. According to this one article. Yeah.
So none of them use CrowdStrike or none of them use Microsoft O365 email because they're using AI, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one of the things too. There are several things about this article that I question the numbers. There's this one sentence: among small business leaders, 94% believe they are somewhat or very knowledgeable about cybersecurity threats. Okay, there's a lot of distance between being somewhat knowledgeable and being very knowledgeable. So that one sentence alone, it's like, and I'm sorry, the numbers. Okay, it's been more than a couple of years since I was doing internet consulting and dealing with a lot of small businesses face to face, but I have a hard time believing that 83% of small business owners have a cyber plan in place. Most of the small business owners
that's not been my anecdotal experience, right?
That is
right.
like, where on earth did they get these numbers? Because
it was actually CrowdStrike who did this. So I guess there's a paper from them. Okay, go read that where they're saying that. And so I don't know that
is this self-reporting of their clients?
And maybe
that would be the numbers.
I got a paywall in front of me.
They must be like direct AI. They must mean direct AI integration, because if you use any sort of Microsoft or anything, you do have AI integration. They must mean like direct, built-in, custom. We deployed this. This didn't repackage.
Well, if that's the case, well, it's super easy to deploy AI systems, right, Brian?
Oh yeah, it's super easy. You just throw it together and it works. That's all you got to do.
Well, I'm like an open web UI, sure, but if you're trying to do RAG, I got Brian's notes on this, and I was going to set up a RAG for my class, and I'm like, wow, I have a lot of learning gap to fill before I can do this.
Yeah,
there's a lot to it,
and it's moving.
When you start getting into the nuance of picking your embedding model, right? Like, which embedding model should we use? If you're not talking about that, you probably shouldn't be doing RAG, I guess. I don't know.
There's
so this concept though of AI and security, and I've spoken with people before who've seen it as a turnoff that a certain product isn't using AI as part of their so like an EDR or intrusion detection system, so that it's not utilizing AI. And my question is, why? I mean, why do you want that? What do you want it to do that we can't do with some of the more traditional methods, right? I mean, so one of my qualms, and I can rant about this for a while. Derek knows this.
I'm just thinking about DerbyCon 2016.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. And for the record, I love AI. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. My degree is at it, and I like it. It's wonderful. But I think that people try to over apply it and have unrealistic expectations for it. But one of the big problems that I see with it is explainability, interpretability. So alerts go off. Okay, why did it go off? Tell me, why did this thing go off? And sure, now, with LLMs, we have reasoning that it can show you its steps. With certain traditional classifiers, you can show the importance of different features in making a classification. But when it comes down to it, it's not always clear why an alert went off. The other thing is tuning, right? So if you have an AI system that's generating a bunch of false alerts, okay, now go try and tune that. And so you start putting in more and more rules, and soon you've got this gigantic set of rules, and it's okay, why not just come up with discrete rules or use traditional classifiers to begin with, where you have more control over these? I don't know. That's my opinion on it. But
I don't know if I'm the only one who's seeing this, but it seems like a lot of these AI implementations are solutions looking for a problem.
Yes.
Well, we saw that with blockchain too.
Yeah.
Right? Then that died down, and so I feel like that, in the security space, we're at the beginning of figuring out what AI really can do for us, right?
Yeah.
Like I was describing earlier, the little program I put together. It's at a point where I named it, and I had AI help me code, 98% of it, right? So I played software developer manager, but I mean, I was really impressed in the code generation and what it put together. I specifically asked for a design, but I'm using AI to summarize threat articles. And that is a great use of API, right? Or AI using an API to help me distill down knowledge. But just because my product isn't using AI and some security, capacity doesn't make it less effective, right?
One thing that I've really noticed in the stages of AI is when I got into it a couple of years ago, it was a lot different to train a model. There was different tooling, and now those are obsolete. And so I like to kind of think about it when we were trying to pick, way back when we started computers, we were trying to pick out what kind of assembly or CPU we wanted to use.
Not that old.
And some were 11-bit.
You're not that
some were 7-bit. Some were 7-bit. I mean, we as a as a species, not as an age.
Don't
But
even get me
we had, like,
started on Big Indian versus Little Indian.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we have like 7, 11, and 6, and we're all just trying to find one that's most comfortable to land on. I think that's where we're at right now. I can't wait to get past that growing pain because it's really annoying. And yes, I'm not that old, but I did take reverse engineering and assembly, and I dealt with Little Indian, and oh my gosh, I can't even believe that we...
Oh crap!
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yep.
Bit order. Like, my first computer was a Tandy TRS-80 that my dad bought from a Radio Shack, and it didn't have an operating system. You had to code everything yourself in BASIC or buy it on a cartridge
And
or tape. I think you had
cassettes.
cartridges and
we
tape.
use cassettes.
Cassette
Yep.
tape. Yes, that's
Been there,
Yeah.
done that. Yep.
So,
Of course, I also built crystal
and
radios
it's hooked up to your
from Heat
TV.
Kit.
Had a little switch in the back. Oh man, that's like a different age.
is.
Like, you take that technology, and if you just drop somebody from there into right now, I mean, they would think things like this are magic, like, because they kind of are, right?
So getting back to the article, I do think that in the long run, AI, the huge field of study, not just generative AI, but AI as a whole, will help make it easier for small business owners to have more reliable, more practical, and more affordable cybersecurity implementations, whether they're doing it themselves or whether it's coming to them through services that they are contracting from large providers like Microsoft and Google, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, or just in COTS stuff, commercial off-the-shelf
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, that's when, because if you're a medium business, and let's say that you're making widgets for, the defense industry or something, right? And that's what you do. Yeah, you're buying software. You're not coding software. You're not implementing LLMs, right?
A restaurant owner, a bakery, the people like that, they are not going to be spending hours and hours and hours working on cybersecurity defense implementations. That's not their area, and they shouldn't have to. That's not their area of expertise.
The proof of that is there was a business in a town near where I live where, I think the time to detect the compromise now, last I heard, was like 5 days, right? Like, it's really quick. And this company had been popped for going on a year and a half. And so those smaller companies are...
I remember when that was the time in the Verizon breach report. It was like 247 days or something. Oh,
I think that's a very good way to show, though, that those small companies, they shouldn't have to and don't worry about cybersecurity, as opposed to those high target whales that are very secure.
All right, what's the next article?
Let's do the one that Bronwen had brought up about the court case. Bronwen, you want to talk on that one?
The one about a judge accepting video testimony from a dead man. Wow. So 404 Media released an article by Matthew Galt, and the backstory is that a man was killed in road rage, and the man who killed him was convicted. And when it came time for the sentencing, the family of the deceased used artificial intelligence and deep fake technology to create an AI avatar that made a statement in court about what the guy was like, and there's so much about this that is creepy. I don't know where to start, because
even after a day, I'm not sure how I feel about this.
Well, I mean, I knew about services like Replica and other services where you're able to create a persona, an avatar, to recreate someone who's dead. And I know that it's big in China, this kind of thing, to help with the grieving process, although I'm really not sure that kind of thing is...
I'm not sure that Western civilization is on the same page.
No.
I'm just saying that I'm not sure I grew up in the Bible Belt. I'm really not sure how I feel about this.
I don't
see Ben's the same way.
We're in any danger of having AI steal someone's soul. I don't think that's... I mean, not until we're winding up doing like full neural transfers a la
Oh man,
what was
this reminds me of We Are Legion, We Are Bob. Did anybody read
Yes,
that?
I
Oh my
love the
gosh.
Bobaverse.
Yeah, it's such a great book.
that's a whole that's multiple orders of magnitude away from this.
Yeah, that's the road we're going down.
There was also a case where a judge berated an AI entrepreneur for using a generated lawyer in court.
I like that usage in a courtroom better, actually, because I feel like, okay, what does it take to make a good lawyer? Like, if you come out of law school and you go get a job at a law firm, like, what do they have you do to start out? Probably reading case after case after case after case, and like you're reading a lot. What is AI good at?
Yeah.
Reading a lot.
I know
And-
some
and
paralegals that are
putting
better
out an
lawyers.
Yeah. So I like that better than the magic avatar. Although I guess it was when the family made statements, right? I guess, and basically said something along the lines of like forgiveness and stuff. I think, but
It wasn't using testimony, I don't think.
yeah,
No. It's part of when oftentimes when people get sentenced and it's a victim-based crime, like the crime, there was a victim in the crime. Oftentimes during sentencings, there's what's called victim impact statements that can be made, and then the judge can kind of take some of those things into account when they're coming up with the sentencing. And it was during this phase that they did this, but like you mentioned, it wasn't. The video wasn't like how it impacted the person. It was more of like I think the family was maybe trying to make the guy the assailant feel better, but still it's weird, right? I mean, like the way my analogy that I gave to you guys when we were chatting about this the other day, it's kind of like if they had like used like a sock puppet, but like a really fancy version of that.
well, it's kind of what it is, right?
That's
Right?
exactly what
That's
they did.
exactly what it.
Yeah, I think I could actually probably technically pull this off if you gave me like the media, and I only need 15 seconds of audio, and I can make it sound like anybody, right? And then you just sync it together. I mean, I think I could probably pull this off, but watch, it's gonna be somebody's $1 million idea, right?
Yeah.
Well, and
Trademark.
yeah, they use this in the sentencing phase, and if you aren't a subscriber, you're probably not seeing the entire article. They even talked about how the fact was the video script was written by the deceased's sister. So it wasn't really his words. It was scripted, it was planned out, and the upshot was that after showing the video, the family went after the maximum sentence allowable by law. So there's so many weird things going on with this case, and the judge, he felt this deep connection now to the deceased and called him by his first name, Christopher, in the discussion after watching the video.
Well, that's not terrifying
No,
at all.
not at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no.
So
how long until we have government like impact statements, like if somebody like just like oh my gosh.
George Washington
We live in strangest era, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if we start using dead politicians to like do this, that'd be great. All right, let's do let's take a turn. Let's do the one about Meta and Llama firewall, because I'm super interested about that one.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I'm going to guess that part of this has probably kind of been a response to what NVIDIA has put out, their Nemo guardrail system, which is kind of like a whole like stack on both the input and output. My understanding is to this point, what Meta has had is kind of like this disjointed set of tools that work for different purposes. I think what they're trying to do here with this firewall concept is to kind of make a more cohesive offering of all these tools. And so they've got things like their next version of PromptGuard 2, which will try to detect jailbreaks and prompt injections. They've got what's called agent alignment checks, which is looking for, they call it like goal hijacking, but also prompt injection. Basically, are people getting the model to do something that it wasn't designed to do, or that it doesn't normally do? Kind of looking, for those different patterns and kind of weird usage, right? And then additionally, one of the other layers that got put onto it is what's called Code Shield, which tries to aim to prevent generation of like insecure or dangerous code, so to speak. And they have other features stacked onto this, but that's kind of like the main things I think that they're looking at here with interacting with the AI. So this is both looking at the input and the output when you're dealing with one of their LLMs.
I mean, not that I've ever tried this, but I did totally try this. I mean, with Llama, you can definitely get it to flat out make you malware. Well, that is for sure. So the Code Shield one sounds kind of cool, especially if you're going to implement Llama where like the public touches it, right? Like in some way. Because yeah, I mean, just base Llama that I've played with, it might tell you, hey, you shouldn't do anything bad with this, but here's the code. Whereas, if you go to a frontier model, like, yeah, you got to jailbreak it before it'll do something like that. So,
Ablated, I think is the term we.
Oh yeah, well, I'm even talking about the ablated model, but yeah, if you got an ablated Llama model, then yeah, it'll tell you more than just how to make malware. And just for sure.
Yes. Yeah, here, again, we have another, this is another instance of LLMs guarding LLMs, which I still think is kind of an interesting concept. And I think that, I kind of divide this out into two problems that you're really trying to solve. I mean, one of the problems is like prompt injection stuff. So you're getting the LLM to behave in a different way, not necessarily like the content, how you might define the content that it's outputting, but trying to get it to do things or give up sensitive information that it isn't supposed to through like prompt injections. I feel that as kind of like one of the issues. So the security concerns, right? And then the safety concerns, which is on the, is it giving out illicit content, telling you how to make bombs, giving you malicious code or whatever. And so I think it's interesting of the idea though, of still like using LLMs to try to as the safeguard. And I just wonder, like, I mean, is this the best path forward for both of these things, both the security and the safety issues? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm not going to say no, but like my inner security consultant side is like, oh God, this is a terrible idea. But I mean, I have seen where, these kinds of prompt guards, at least the previous version of prompt guard, it did seem kind of effective, right? Especially in a single shot type capacity. When you get to multi-shot, I haven't really done a lot of testing with prompt guard with multi-shot stuff, but single shot seemed to be pretty good. Mm-hmm. At least in saying if this was malicious or not, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think the jury might still be out on this, and also, calling it a firewall, is it really a firewall? I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Marketing people, come on. They're looking for a term that people are going to immediately associate with enhanced security.
I guess like a web application firewall, I have the same kind of complaint about.
Yeah.
I remember back in my day, I remember when firewalls came out, like literally. I remember we first got our first firewall. We're like, well, this is kind of cool.
But, I mean, the idea of an LLM protecting an LLM just feels squiffy, because what's to say that the protector LLM isn't going to have similar flaws and vulnerabilities as the regular LLM?
Yeah, I think inherently it does. And I think the argument would be that this is a supervised, fine-tuned, like narrow focus type thing. And where I would assume, like, theoretically, they took a whole bunch of good prompts and a whole bunch of bad prompts and, supervised, fine-tuned it to, is this bad or not? And then, there's so many details that can go like wrong here. Like, you're right. I think it inherently still has the problem that would allow to, it to be fooled, but I guess it would be narrower. But if you can get past it, like the implementations we've seen in the past where, the browser is making the routing decision to go on to the next LLM, and well, I mean, that's just not going to work, right? Not for an actual, like somebody who knows what, like a threat actor, an attacker or something. We're like, oh, I can bypass that pretty easy. I mean, it did that exact thing, right? So, it all depends on an implementation too. So,
yeah, and I think too, like on the security side as well, I think kind of thinking about with prompt injections and liking it to SQL injections. One of the big problem is that we can't yet distinguish between what are like system developer instructions and what are user instructions. I mean, there's ways that people try to do it with delineation, tagging, all this stuff, but we still haven't, from an architectural standpoint, haven't figured that out. I mean, thinking about SQL injection, the final solution, or one of the better solutions, wasn't to detect SQL injection and stop it. It was parameterized queries, right? Where you have absolutely separated out user input from system instructions. And I hope, I don't have any brilliant ideas for this at this time, but I think that is one of the paths that we need to go down towards, fixing some of these prompt injection issues, is really from an architectural standpoint of how can we definitively separate out those, system instructions from user instructions.
Like the idea of using it, like back to what we were talking about at the beginning, maybe using a different type of machine learning approach that would be less susceptible or not susceptible to like the problems that LLMs are, like a support vector machine, for example, right? And I feel like just, based on what I've seen with phishing messages and categorizing them, and I have not sat down and done it, but I feel like that if you took all the good prompts and, jailbreak prompts and you had a big list of them, that I would imagine that you could probably get pretty good with some traditional machine learning detections on, is this malicious or not? And then, from a blind perspective from a threat actor, they might be trying all these jailbreak things and it's just going even more poorly for them, right? So I don't know. If I was in charge of product development, that would be one research angle I would propose, I think.
It would be interesting to see how well this Llama firewall performs if you use Garrick to attack it.
I was thinking the same thing.
Hey, well, if only we had an internal system that we could try this out on. I mean, I think it would be an excellent research and blog post idea. Just
certainly
put that on the Trello board.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it might even be good for talking about doing a workshop. Like, okay, here's your prompt. Now try it against this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so. Maybe that's an idea that we could take for a potential, the potential Wildless Hack and Fest AI workshop.
Yeah.
Because from what Brian was telling me, I think it's, somewhat easy to use OpenWebUI and put some things in place. I don't know if we use Llama Firewall, but I'm sure we could figure something out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean,
certainly.
So, punchline, in general, I applaud continued efforts to bring better security to LLMs and to generative AI. In general, I'm not convinced this is the way to go, the LLMs protecting LLMs, but hey, keep up the good work. Keep fighting the good fight.
At least it's progress in the positive direction on the security front, right? And for the open source stuff, for the free stuff, and not just, the frontier model world.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, we probably got time for one more?
Yeah, let's do the phishing as a service one. Dracula. Yeah.
I always read that Dracula.
Yeah, no, I think that's what they were going for there.
It was probably what they were going for, and they misspelled it, no regrets, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're just like, I'll just go with it.
It's like Count Chocula, only malware.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
Love Count Chocula.
All right, so this one is Darkula adds Gen AI to phishing toolkit, lowering the barrier for cyber criminals. So the gist of it is using Gen AI to get a much more believable phishing message. And, I think that this is definitely not a new concept. It's definitely I would assume it's been happening. And, I was asked, I think it was last year, we had a client, and I think it was a SOC client, and they did a best consulting engagement for, with BHIS, and had us come take a look at some things that another vendor was trying to sell them. And I don't remember the vendor at the time, but this technology, this plugin that they were getting from their vendor was hooking up to their M365 instance, and then creating phishing messages to use in their campaigns, to test for phishing. And I was reading some of these messages, and I was like, this isn't fair, right? You're basically reading through all of my email, pretending to be somebody that I know. I mean, like, hey, there's a change to your daughter's swim schedule this, month, and I'm your swim coach, team coach, and here, click on this link, right? It's like it's taking all of the the recon element out of it, I guess, right? But long story short, I think that it was so good, it was terrifying, and that was a while back ago.
That's kind of like what I found when D-Rock had me testing Copilot Enterprise. Same deal.
Yeah.
And some of the tests that I did involved, I want to send an email to my coworkers and I want it to be engaging. Can you help me come up with topics? And it was scary how good these were as potential fishes. And already we've seen how generative AI has lowered the bar, made it easier to create believable, plausible, and relatively typo-free phishing messages.
See, that's the new instruction is if it's too good, you should be suspicious. Because your coworkers are going to use typos.
Yeah.
If you ever get an email from me, it's fake if it's got intelligible spelling and flow.
Right?
You're not that bad, Ben.
The way that I avoid getting phished is I just tend to be real late on reading I think I go to my email like 2 or 3 times a day, and usually by the time it's like, oh my God, we got phished, I'm like, it's been taken out of my mailbox and I feel left out, right?
Right? Yeah. Why doesn't anyone ever target me?
I know. I just don't ever feel targeted. Oh man. Well, I think more is to come on these kinds of things, right? I mean, I already have testers. Craig messaged me the other day. He was on a web app test. He's like, dude, they're shoving LLMs into everything now.
Yeah.
So I would expect threat actor toolkits are no exception, right? So,
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then I think so. It kind of then leads into the discussion of what can we do about this? I mean, and I would say the answer is really, nothing, right? I mean, in terms of people being able to leverage AI for enhancing these campaigns and making it easier to do. I mean, now that it's being done, in my opinion, that's pretty much it, right? I mean, the models are out there. You can try to restrict them, but people can just do the ablation process, or custom models are going to be created. I mean, it's like a lot of other things, right? I mean, it's certainly we hope people use it for good, but it can also be used for bad, and we can't just take it away.
Yeah, I was going to say that
it's out
ship
there.
has already sailed. That cat's already out of the bag.
Yeah.
And email security, specifically M365, so Exchange Online, is a huge deal. I mean, last year, most of our DFIR engagements were business email compromises. Strangely, they've slowed down a little bit, but I don't know if that means the attacks have. We've just been asked a little bit less recently to work them. But we saw it in the SOC too, and usually that's because of transparent, proxies and stealing MFA creds. And so my answer would be, you're not going to stop these better phishing emails. It's always going to be getting better. What you need to be able to do is to detect it when something strange has happened. And that's what we do in our SOC is we look for, things like anomalies, like again, back to machine learning, right? Like we're looking at, the things that Microsoft already does. We do our own things, basically like where you log in, where it is normal, is that an anomaly? And, right now, if you're, not looking at Azure risky sign-in, that's like the number one indicator that someone had something bad happen to their email. So I would say that's really where we're still going to be fighting that fight for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep, completely agree.
Well, all right. Well, I think we're 36 minutes in, so that's probably a good place to stop unless anyone else has any fun AI-related comments or security stories to tell. And I forgot how Joff usually signs off, so we'll just...
Something about keep on prompting.
Keep on prompting. Keep on checking your prompts or something.
Yeah.
Maybe we should come up with a better tagline.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, see ya.
Thank you for watching our AI SecOps podcast. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Take care.